The number of companies and businesses operating at a European or global scale is increasing, and thus more and more restructuring measures affect employees in different countries at the same time. For decades, trade unions have fought for binding restructuring guidelines in Europe. Since the 1970s, a patchwork of employee rights has been created. Apart from the Framework Directive on Information and Consultation Rights, two more significant achievements consist of a provision for board-level employee representation in companies listed as Societas Europaea (SE), as well as the right to establish European Works Councils (EWC). There are more than 900 EWCs in Europe today.
Company managements try, of course, in many cases to sideline European Works Councils. One example is they pretend that certain information cannot be given because a company is obliged, for instance, by US stock exchange rules not to hand them out, which is totally in contrast to a European law. So essentially what the company is saying, stock exchange rules in the US go beyond the will of the European people as expressed by their parliaments at the European level and the national level.
In fact, in 2006, even though it is required, less than 1/3 of all European Work Council members felt that they have been informed and consulted sufficiently about the economic situation of their company. 6 out of 10 EWC members are unsatisfied because they are not consulted on the economic situation, and 12% report that they receive either useless information or are not informed at all.
In the companies that I work with, they never inform. In our cases, it's usually done, the decision, so it's just information to the people that this is what we have done. And I've even heard a case where the people were kept in a locked room without their cell phones or anything to wait until it was posted on the company website. And only after that they will let go.
The implementation into national law has also led to different standards in managing restructuring. This patchwork of rights, growing for years and years, has been sufficient for some time. But not least since the financial and economic crisis, the trade unions in the EU and the European Parliament demand a consistent, extensive and legally binding framework. As a response, the EU Commission presented the non-binding Quality Framework for Restructuring and Anticipation of Change, QFR, in December 2013. All in all, a disappointment for the trade unions.
The quality framework is not sufficient. It's a voluntary framework. It's a collection of examples of best practice which are not selected by workers.
Well, this quality framework is a good example. It is, what can I say? It's the reply of a very strong demand, and this reply is very weak. And the answer of the Commission was, okay, we have a voluntary quality framework and we list in this quality framework what the different actors has to do, and then they can pick and choose what they want. So it's not binding at all.
In fact, the negative effects of the crisis make the enforcement of European employee rights and more democracy at work so essential. This is what the ETUC and its member organizations stand for.
What we need, also in public services, is clear information consultation rights that involve workers and trade unions in decisions that affect them, so that we can have an influence, can point out the deficiencies, the problems in the services, but also ensure that everybody is included in the decision.
What we need is actually obligations on companies, and for this we need European legislation, because restructuring nowadays in Europe happens at a transnational European level and no longer at the national level.
When it comes to individual rights, as I said, it must be a fundamental right. Everybody should have access to information consultation. We don't want thresholds, for example, in the Framework Directive, or we want a better protection and a longer protection period in the case of merger and fusions. So depending on the different pieces, we have concrete demands how we want to improve the framework.